Welcome to another edition of Rational Politics. I'm joined at the table today by three rather distinguished gentlemen, Tallis, Jonathan and Andy. So let's quickly go around the table and do some introductions. Tallis, why don't you give us a brief, this is who I am.
Thank you, Nigel, and I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation. I think it's a very important conversation for us all to have. My background is in entrepreneurship. I have almost 20 years of that experience as a C-level executive, as well as ran for city council and published a book and have previously taught at the University of Colorado.
Perfect. Andy, you are involved in so many different things. I mean, a music producer, a filmmaker, an artist.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm very surprised to be on a Rational show. I'm a local artist. I've been in Colorado for about 10 years. I have been instrumental helping the local art scene, helping kind of get the Left Hand Artist Group established. I'm here because I was the host of a show called Boulder County Tonight, which is a 16-episode TV series that followed the local city council election. And recently my work has been invited to be included in the Texas Tech archives. So I'm throwing a big art show about that at the end of the month at Abbott and Wallace Distilling.
Excellent. And last at the table, our good friend, Jonathan. It's so good to see you back at the table.
It's good to be back, and it's always good to be here. I don't know how to actually describe myself. I want to be as present as possible in the moment. I have done a lot of things in my life. I ran twice for county commissioner in Weld County as a Democrat, which is like falling on your sword, and written a book, not really published yet, but it's going to be. I'm a singer-songwriter. Worked professionally as a stand-up jazz singer for about 7 or 8 years when I was younger. Worked as a software engineer for about 25 years. My expertise is in computer graphics. And other than that, I'm here today.
And it's good to have you back. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. We've talked a little bit about what we want to discuss, but I think top of the list here is extremes. We've got extremes going on the left, we have extremes going on the right, and both parties seem to be wanting to fall down both those rabbit holes all at the same time.
I think it's the same rabbit hole, and I think it's actually the same thing that show people have been dealing with for years, and it's desperation. In this new economy, it's more obvious than ever that the most essential asset you could ever have is attention. And so you have politicians doing anything they can to have that attention, that social currency of attention, and they're desperate for it. They'll do anything, and so they have to be more extreme than anybody else to get that kind of attention.
So they're all trying to outdo each other.
Yes, it's the same thing that's wrong with the news. It's the same thing that's wrong with the arts.
And of course, this is all governed by the First Amendment anyway.
Yeah, desperation is fear-based, and as we know from Dune, fear is the mind killer.
Right. It's amazing. Jonathan, what are your feelings on this?
The kinds of things that we have going on with the extremes, it's what gets attention. It's what people pay attention to. If you say, it's very bright outside, people go, oh yeah, it's very bright. But if you say, I think there's a fireball out there, the same kind of relative information, people go, oh my gosh. And you have the attention. And the attention is the social currency. And it's extraordinarily important. And I think the other part with driving the extremes, I don't know if it is human nature to be able to be drawn to that which is most sensational, that which seems like the biggest threat. All of those kinds of things draw attention. But the people who I think are really culpable are those people who are in the media, who have attention, who are utilizing those kind of techniques to gain the attention. And if you educate those people who are around you to be able to say, Look at what really counts, what is really important. Let's not get wrapped up in the sensational. You get wound up around the wheel and, the end of discussion.
Yeah. Chalice.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing to watch, and I watched it firsthand when I ran for office. I always have considered myself a moderate. I grew up in Bakersfield, California, which is probably one of the most conservative places within the state. And I really think that, politicians are very limited to who is going to be supporting of them. If I'm out there, I need to do door knocking, who are going to knock on doors? Probably the people who are the most polarized, right? The people who feel like there's something that's hurting them and they want to go and do something that would change it. Now, how do you get more people to feel like they're aggrieved? You go to the far extremes and you say, oh, have you seen those people that are doing this horrible thing? And then you get them really riled up, and then you've then just created some animosity between other people within your community. And I just think that there's a lot better ways that we can go about our political system than have pointing fingers from one side and then pointing fingers on the other side.
I think a lot of the problems that we see today is the fact that these politicians are allowed to say whatever they want. They all go, oh, First Amendment, First Amendment, First Amendment. I think it's time to scrub the First Amendment, but I'm British, so I probably shouldn't say that.
You shouldn't. You'd be completely wrong, in my opinion.
Another way of framing the First Amendment, you have the legal right to lie.
That's right.
And that's the problem.
In some cases.
And that's the problem.
In some cases, yes, there are. You can't yell fire if there isn't a fire.
Because in America, it seems like our real value is I have the right to swing my arms, and that right ends at your face.
Right.
And there are language versions of that.
So I think the issue with free speech is that there isn't enough of it. I think safe spaces within schools and other areas are really a potential harm to free speech. I've heard of, fringe political speakers being prevented from speaking their mind at college campuses, and I think that's really sad. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of those, especially the ones on the right, but I would fight for their ability to have a platform, so that if you don't have exposure to those thoughts, whether they're vile or not, we're not going to be able to have that discourse.
Yeah, and it's treasuring information that is not totally consistent with the way that you think. I mean, when I hear somebody when I hear them talking about something that questions the way that I think about it, I lean in and I want to hear it. But there isn't that kind of curiosity. It's more like, oh, this is uncomfortable, or it's, which side are you on? You know
that so much.
And it's like, we need to get away from saying, I'm on this side or I'm on this side. I'm talking about the issue. That's what I'm talking about. And I want us to get all the information out about that particular issue. And if we don't do that, how can we move forward?
True.
Bad information is an important part of the process, because you can only know good information basically relative to bad information.
That is true, but the information has to be truthful.
Does it?
Yes.
I don't know.
I think it does.
Truth's tricky.
I think
If you want to converge, then it has to be the truth from both sides. Now, it may be the truth as they see it,
Right.
but it still has to be the truth. I mean, you look at some of the things that, well, Ted Cruz is a great example. How can he not go home at night and go, yeah, you'll never guess what I said today? I mean, how do these people live with themselves? It is truly amazing.
Cold on a rock on warm days, I think, for Ted Cruz.
That's probably true. In Mexico.
Reptile fuck.
So a little bit about me. My dad's side is from Iran. My mom's side is from Ukraine. So Ukrainian Orthodox Catholic, Muslim. My aunt's a nun. So it's like there's a lot of religion.
You're all over the place.
Yeah, I've had a lot of religious exposure in my life.
Ideal American.
Well, thank you. But my thing is that when people start valuing religion at the same value as fact, that's where we start going down the wrong rabbit hole. When people are valuing a religious dogma at the same value as, you know, some science, that there's an issue there.
A real
They
issue.
very rarely actually have to come up against each other. It's all framing.
Abortion?
Yeah. Well,
Right. That's in the Bible. Excuse me. Abortion's in the Bible.
Yes.
yeah.
Everyone knows this,
The
right?
quickening.
There's a test that you do. It's in the Old Testament. Oh, know it. It's in. Oh, I'm not going to remember the book it's in. Boy, Ezekiel. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Look it up, because the truth is, if a woman is suspected of cheating on her spouse and she's pregnant, there's a practice where she goes to the temple. The priest mixes up a glass of
Whatever.
like shit from the ground and mystery something, and the woman drinks it. And if the baby dies from it, that is because it was from outside the marriage, and it's God doing it. But you can't call that something other than like a coin flip abortion.
Well, I
Right.
learned
I
something
mean, and
today.
that
That's in the
almost
Bible.
that almost sounds like a scene straight out of Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
It's God's idea. In the Bible, that's God's idea of how to fix the problem.
Wow.
See, I think the problem with the Bible is they actually use it in church. With all the book banning that's going on at the moment, I think it's time the Bible was banned from church, because
Which one?
if you look at it, it's full of murder, incest, rape. Well, the list goes on and on and on.
I think we can't look away. We can't afford to look away from bad ideas.
That's
the
true.
reason I think they ought to teach about religion later in the process in lower school, but they also ought to have a safe space in those lower parts of
Yes.
school, because we don't need kids to think about that necessarily immediately.
At their age, no.
Sure.
No.
You need to hold religion and science and the arts in a larger context.
Yes.
Yes.
You have to understand that each has their place. They have something. Religion, many times, they don't teach it as being allegorical or being just a story, or it's not the exact thing that's being talked about. It's what is inferenced.
That's
Yes.
right.
It's what is beyond that. Now, science, on the other side, it's like it has its place, but it doesn't replace artistic thought, which is like, oh, I just had a new idea. I think that's great. Let's do
Yes.
it. Right?
There are three different methods
Yes.
of studying the great mystery of the universe, although I would be careful about putting science in the school of mysticism, though it's a different methodology for studying it. But I believe all religions are basically eyewitness testimony to a car crash. Everybody's a little right and a little wrong, and guess what? Mostly wrong.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Because
Joseph.
the car crash never happened.
Well,
Correct.
more like you don't know what you're looking at. None of us know
That's
what
true.
the fuck we're looking at.
Yeah.
If
At
it
all.
helps you to think religiously, I think you ought to. Because I think some people need to feel like they're being watched. But how early do we need to do that? Doing that,
I know
my
I need
opinion
to
is
be
doing
watched.
that to a child is a child abuse. But that's whatever. Let's use that term carefully. but-
Have you ever seen that documentary Bible Camp?
Yes, sir, I have.
I mean, you talk about the brainwashing of American kids.
I lived that. I went to
Oh,
those.
you went through that?
Yes, sir. I was
Holy
a
mackerel.
professional Christian when I first got out of high school. I was a professional minister. I'm an ordained minister in the school in a different church now, the Church of Dudism, which is based on the Big Lebowski. And yes, I can do your wedding, and I hope that your love is the rug that brings your life together.
Let's talk about the monification of the news organizations.
I recently posted an article within the local Democratic Facebook page, and it was an article from The Economist, basically talking about what we're talking about today: how, not just the right, not just the left, both sides, they're polarized, and they need to go to the middle and have a rational conversation about their fringes, right? So I posted this article, and oh man, did I get some hate. I got hated on, I got name called, I got all sorts of things. Then I asked them, did you guys read the article? They're like, no, it's behind a paywall. I'm like, most good journalism is, because someone is paying for it, whether it's advertisers like the Koch brothers or you as a subscriber.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm like, they suggested I commit copyright fraud and copy and paste, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I mean, you guys can go pay for the good journalism, because we need more good outlets like The Economist.
Absolutely true.
Absolutely. In fact, I have several subscriptions that I don't necessarily read really very often, but I know they do good work, and I know that that needs to be going on. And so what every good citizen needs to be looking around right now and exercising their civic duty by saying, well, this place is really good, I should support it. This one does really good work, I should support it. Even if it's like $3 a month or whatever, just something. The people who have the financial interests, who are giving us all of our media, a lot of our media, they have a financial interest, which is all about the money.
Yeah.
And they are acting consistently out of what their frame is. So they can't really you can't really say, oh, they're evil. But the confluence of everything that happens around that is indeed bordering on evil. So to counter that, we need to diversify and have many, 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 many different voices. Because as soon as you have monopolies that have only 2 or 3 interests that are making all the decisions, you don't get the full picture. Mm-hmm. You don't understand what the homeless are talking about or what they feel, or the people who are having to work 3 and 4 jobs just to make sure that they can feed their families. Those are all the kinds of things. We need all those voices to be able to be heard. And now that is a difficult task. And that's where editors and people who are doing good media are really important. I remember when people were saying, well, we've got the internet and we're going to have, all kinds of opportunity and there's going to be all these various voices. And I said, the one thing you're probably going to be missing, editors. Mm-hmm. People who say, this is good stuff, this is not so good.
Curation of content is key. There's too much content out there, and there's too many people who feel like they're a legitimate source and that their opinion matters. There's not as much actual fact-based reporting.
Right, exactly. We need to go back to basics. We need to go a little slower. Mm-hmm. We need to think about life in the context of just, what's this all about? I mean, here we are, we're talking, and what the real joy is, there's 3 other people here that I can talk to, and they're going to agree with me some, and they're going to disagree with me some, and we're going to have good times, and we're going to have contention. But by golly, it makes going to the next moment enjoyable.
That's the great American skill set. Having lunch with somebody you kind of just disagree with, be like, yeah, but whatever, you're a good neighbor, I'm a good neighbor. You know what it is?
Yeah.
So I think...
But it's got far more personal now.
Well, of course, because it's the information age, and everyone is individually a part of that, donating their own information to the system. And so everyone has become a social fire hydrant of information, because attention is the resource, right? So the thing we're talking about in the beginning is what's wrong with the news, right? They're competing with each other to have the most eye-catching news thing. Evolutionarily, you're programmed to know shit like a leopard's down there. That's more important than an apple's up here or what the fuck ever, right? Because evolutionarily speaking, you don't survive unless you notice problems first.
Right.
So the news people know that. And now here we are with this problem with Russia and the Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Our news people are skipping down the block, like just this side of gleeful, because they know that a war is worth billions, and they're part of who makes the billions.
I'm wondering what has happened, because I can remember Ronald Reagan talking about the evil empire all those years ago. Mm. Now it looks like the Republican Party is now pro-communist and the Democratic Party is anti-communist. What happened? What happened?
They are definitely not communists. If there's anything that the Republican capitalist mob doesn't want, it's to share.
Well, that's correct.
They have no inclination to share. What they do have is this sort of like corporate muscle that they're pushing us around through our politics. I think both the corporate Democrats and the larger Republican Party right now are fucking dog people. And they are good dogs for someone that's not you.
It's just surprising me what happens. I mean, you get this Tucker creature on Fox News. Pro-Russia, pro-Russia, oh, shit. Wait a minute, they've just invaded. Now, I know they've been talking about this for 3 weeks. Oh, naughty Russia, naughty Russia. No one will notice.
One of the things I think that's happened, especially over on the right, maybe it's happened also on the left, but I think probably more on the right, I would venture a guess that many people on the right, communism doesn't mean that. Communism is an icon. It's something, oh my God, it's communism. That means that my children are going to be, they won't be able to go to school, and they just, they lose it.
It's the Pepsi to our Coke, you know? We've just been branded to think of it as like, that's the other guy. Oh, fuck that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, those same people that are so conservative and whatever that we see in these, whatever we call them conservative, they're anything but, really. But the truth is, they're sitting down there waving flags, but they're also holding Bibles. And the truth is, if you're really asking yourself, Jesus, the character from the Bible, I'm not sure if you've read the book, but in Jesus' story, do you figure he would be a capitalist or a socialist? Is Jesus about money or is he about people?
Right.
Well, golly, if he was a capitalist, when he's feeding all the 5,000 people with the fish and loaves, he sells those fish and loaves. He's making them endlessly. He sells them for cheap or whatever, but he makes money and uses it for a thing. What did he really do?
I mean,
he gave
absolutely.
it the fuck away. He had an endless resource, could have charged for it, could have really done things with that money. Instead, he is a peopleist.
Right.
He fed the people. He's not there to make money.
Well, I mean, one could also argue that he, of course, created the National Health Service.
Well, yeah, he did give a lot of free
He went around,
healthcare.
you know, curing people left, right, and center for nothing.
A lot of free healthcare, but he did heal a dude's blindness by spitting in his face once. So I mean, it's not exactly COVID friendly.
Well, you know, spit in the face, get my eyesight back. I'm sorry, I'm going with the spit in the face.
I'm not saying it's not a good deal. And look, if you got a vial of the spit now, I'm not saying I'm not putting it places. You know.
Why don't we go quickly round the table for last thoughts? Tallis.
Well, I think that more people should be, well, hopefully this gets a wide enough viewership where people can start thinking about politics and not just the polarized aspect of it, but actually taking a deeper, thoughtful thought experiment through what is really important to them and what they can do individually. I'm a big fan of Andrew Yang. He has a new Forward movement, which is a moderate movement. I think that our two-party system leads to the polarization. So if we can get through ranked choice voting or another system that would allow us to have more third
parliamentary. Could I recommend a parliamentary system?
As long as we don't have a House of Lords.
Oh no.
I watch Parliament a lot. It is hilarious.
Oh,
I love it.
Prime Minister's question time.
It's good times.
Best TV.
It is great TV.
Best TV.
Yeah. No, I love it.
Any other thoughts?
I look forward to our next conversation.
Excellent. Andy?
Yeah, I guess I do have some thoughts. I'll make it brief, though. I think we're asking the wrong questions in these larger conversations about these topics, about all the division and all the things that we're going through. It's the information age. It's a confusing time. Filtering information is very difficult. It's a high-level human skill set, and everyone's having to develop it at the same time. A little bit more grace for each other would be helpful. If we could ask questions that are more like, how can I better be in love? How can I better be kind? I promise that works better in community and whatever. Fuck the end times. The truth is, your community is what really affects your life. And these larger stories that are happening, they matter, but don't forget that the people around you are the real people that create your world, and you're creating it for them.
A lot of truth there.
Yeah.
That's his job, goddamn.
Yeah.
Jonathan?
I'm 100% on that. You have to give the gift of yourself to the world first. And you have to think and hold yourself to high standards. Not what other people will allow you to be, but who you demand of yourself. You have to be the one who makes that cut, and constantly is doing right by what you feel is right. Because you can be authorized by one party or the other party or politics or whatever. I mean, the Nazis were killing Jews, and they were authorized. Just following orders, boss. Just following orders.
That argument didn't go down too well in Nuremberg.
No, but
Went over great in Argentina, though. I think
That is true.
That's a good point, yeah.
so it is the thing where people need to step back, slow down a little bit. Don't take sound bites that you hear on the radio or on TV and internalize them. Question everything.
Yes.
It's like myself, I constantly question myself. Am I too far this way, too far that way? Am I listening enough? Am I hearing things? Am I balanced enough? Don't be out there going like, oh, I am going to save the world.
Right.
And it's one of the things with religion that is a terrible part of it is people become absolutists.
Yes,
It's like, that's wrong.
correct.
Well, maybe it is in certain circumstances. In other circumstances, it is really wrong. But every once in a while, it might not be all that terrible. But for yourself, what you need to say, each one of us, what is it for me?
Yes.
And then hold yourself to that level.
Right.
Oh, I love you. You're wonderful. Just think.
Oh my God, we have a love fest going on.
Oh, yes. I wish we could develop the skill of knowing that no one has the real final truth. And if we can all sort of find a way to bask in the mystery together, we will be fine.
We will be fine.
Everything's going to be fine.
Yes.
Another Rational Politics grinds slowly to a halt. I hope you're all still with us. I just want to quickly thank Andy, Jonathan, and Tallis for being here today. I'm Nigel Aves, your host, signing off. Thank you very much. Goodbye.